Dear listener, in this episode, I talk with Tammy Strobel. Tammy is a writer, photographer, and teacher. She has a blog called Rowdy Kittens, where she shares information about going small, thinking big, and being happy. And going small, she really did that because now she's living in a tiny house. More about that in this episode. Let's get into it. Okay, Tammy, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's really great having you because I'm really curious about the tools you use. I came across your blog when I was searching for other inspiring people, and you're blogging on rowdykittens.com.
I am.
Yeah. And you also live in a tiny house, and that's fascinating to me. So I want to start with your story, and let's start with a question and an answer you always have when people ask you, Tammy, what do you do?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm a writer, teacher, and photographer, so that's what I do in the world. I wear a lot of different hats.
Yeah, okay. That's a short and powerful question. And you write about simplifying your life also, right?
I do. I spend a lot of my writing time on simplicity and happiness, and I also write about creativity and specifically writing and journaling and then photography. So those are kind of my three focus areas at this point in time.
Okay. And how do you define success?
Oh gosh, that's a hard question, actually. There's so many different versions of success, but for me, I think it's really making sure that I'm prioritizing the people I love in my life. And if I can do that and make time and space for them, then everything else will fall into place.
Wow, that sounds really good. And beside the people, do you focus on other things?
Oh, sure. I mean, of course, I want to be successful in my career and with like my writing life and photography and teaching. Like I really want to help people simplify their lives and like harness their own creativity. But I also, I don't know. I just think that like if I spend the time and I work hard, that the success will follow. And for me, I've had a lot of stuff happen in probably 2.5, 3 years that's shifted my perspective. My dad passed away in June of 2012. And so like that relationship piece of really paying attention to my loved ones and close friends is really, really important. So I guess what I'm trying to say is like the super personal life comes first for me, and then like the business stuff and creativity is sort of like an added benefit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes really sense. Okay, and when it's not working for you, when you're feeling down, when you're in a funk, what do you do to get out of that funk?
That's another good question. So I was really sick. I got sick right before Christmas, and then like it started with a cold, and then I got bronchitis, and just like this virus I had hung on for about a month. Yeah. And I am not like I'm a baby when I get sick. I don't like it because I'm really active, and I like spending time with my loved ones and working on, my professional projects and just being creative. And so kind of just, being forced to really take care of myself and rest was hard. And just kind of like I had the cabin fever and all that plays in when you get sick and are down for a while. So all that to say is I just tried to do something creative every day, especially, I couldn't do a lot. I was sleeping more than anything. But when I
Sure.
got up
Yeah.
in the morning, I spent time journaling. And I also have been doing a daily photography project since January 1st of 2013. And so making sure I take my daily photo and post that online. So I guess for me, like, and then also relying on my loved ones to just like talk through my funk. Like, they usually help me put things in perspective and get me back to a place of like gratitude and just being in the moment.
Yeah. Okay. So you journal every day?
I do, yeah. I get up around 5 or 5:15, and I make a cup of coffee, maybe two or three follow. But yeah, I love
Same
drinking
here.
coffee.
Yeah, me too.
So it's kind of a problem, but that's all right.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Better
then
than being an
yeah,
alcoholic or something.
exactly.
Yeah.
So like make my good coffee, and then I find a comfortable place to sit and just like, pet my cats and stuff. And then I start my journaling process. So I've been using a Desire Map day planner, and that was created by Danielle Laporte. And I really like her planner because she has, like, on the daily pages section, there are prompts, and then she also has different life categories within the planner. So everything from your livelihood to like what you want to do for your creativity and learning, and like really focusing on those categories every day and writing down like small action steps that I need to do to make myself feel better, whether that's going for a long walk later in the day or making sure I write 500 words for the blog. It just really keeps me on track. So I
Yeah.
use that for kind of like to-dos and like life planning. And then I also have two other notebooks, one specifically for work and then another for just freestyle journaling to write like whatever comes to mind in the morning.
Okay.
So it's sort of similar to the daily pages idea from Julia Cameron, I think is how you say her name. She
Yeah.
wrote The Artist's Way.
Yeah, I wrote that book.
Mm-hmm.
Read that book. Yeah, and she gives the task that you write down each morning, 3 pages, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so I usually write, 2 or 3 pages, maybe more.
Yeah.
It just depends on what's going on in my life, but I've found journaling to be really powerful. God, I started journaling when I was like 13 or 14. So it's just been a part of my life and I love it.
Yeah. What makes it so powerful for you? What are the benefits and the results you get?
Sure. Well, I think it helps me pay attention to where I want to go with my long-term goals,
Yeah.
specifically like, really making sure I'm prioritizing time for my loved ones. And then on the professional side, I usually make like 2 or 3 large goals that I want to accomplish each year. And so, like with my Desire Map planner, I can like look at those big goals every morning and be like, okay, where am I at with that? What do I need to do today to move forward to reach that endpoint, if that makes sense? And as far as like the freestyle journaling goes, it just helps me process like, any fears or insecurities I might be dealing with. And I also do a lot of like gratitude lists and really try and focus on that in my daily pages, because I think gratitude is a really, really powerful activity, and just
Yeah.
like making time to write down what you're grateful for can really counteract any fears that you might be dealing with.
Yeah. Agree. Yeah. Writing down or just thinking about what you're really, really thankful for is so powerful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. It's amazing. Like this morning I was just writing about my in-laws, and last night we went out to their house and had just a pizza dinner with them and hung out for about 3 hours and just talked and caught up. And it was just so nice. And knowing that we have that family support here, it's just really cool. And so being able to recognize that and reflect on those kinds of activities are good, I think.
Yeah. And beside the planning, the writing, do you have any other tools that you use to implement goals and systems or habits, or is it all writing?
It's mainly my journaling, and
Yeah.
I started using the Desire Map Planner last year, and I just really liked the system because, like I was saying, it just helps me break down my big goals on a daily basis. So when I think about, right now I'm creating an e-course for beginning journalers, and so that was one of my big
Nice.
goals for the new year. And when you think about like, hey, I'm going to write an e-course, like it can be really overwhelming. But if you just take like one small step each day, it makes it way more manageable and I'm less likely to freak out, if that makes sense. So to get it done. Yeah.
I know. Yeah. Okay. So you earn your money with the things you sell through your blog.
I do. So
Yeah.
my main income source is through teaching. So I teach e-courses, a couple different ones. I have a collaborative partnership with other writers, and we teach a simple year, and we just closed registration for this year's session. And then I also teach kind of a basic photography class, and I was teaching a course called Writing in the Digital Age, but I decided to retire that course, and I'm going to launch my journaling class sometime this year. And I have a couple other ideas up my sleeve, but those will have to wait until I'm actually done with the journaling class. Yeah. And then I have income sources from my books and photos, and what else? Like some affiliate sales. I don't do a ton with affiliates. Just really, I only support products that I really believe in, if that makes sense. Like I don't sign up for every affiliate thing out on the internet because that's just nuts. So try and keep it simple.
Yeah, makes really sense. I also only recommend the books I've read and also just want to recommend to others. So that's the same for me. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're talking about or asking about tools that I use. I mean, it's like the writing is huge, but I also love taking photos, and then I'm an avid reader. So I think like if you're in a funk or just need inspiration, just go pick up a book at the library, because I think that can really shift your perspective pretty fast if you're having a rough go.
Yeah. Read. Mm-hmm. And how does creativity work for you?
Oh, another good question. So I do like a lot of my creative work in the mornings. I tend to be a morning person, and like in the afternoons, I try and, do my administrative type work for my business and answer emails and things like that. But I've just found that over the years, I'm a lot clearer in the mornings. So if I need to write an essay for the blog or work on an e-course or a book, it's just better for me to get it done in the morning, because the afternoons I'm just not as snappy, I guess.
Okay. And when you do you ever think like, okay, now I want creativity and I'm gonna do this, or is it just flowing to you, or how do you cope with it? How do you deal with it?
That's an interesting question. I think if you can show up and just like do your work, that the creativity will flow, if that makes sense. Like if I overthink the writing process and I get stuck in this thing of like, I'm not good enough, this has been done before kind of talk, I'll never write. So like my job is to just show up and get the work done, if that makes sense. And that goes for
Oh yeah.
photography too. Like,
Yeah.
if you want to be creative, you have to
Go outside.
engage in that creative act. So like yesterday I went for a really long walk in the park and took a ton of photos. And yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but you just
Oh
really
yeah.
like, you have to show up and do the work, I guess is what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
the muse is there to access, but you can't be like, oh, I'll just wait for the muse, because she might not show up for a couple weeks. So you just have to like go through the process.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Yeah, let's talk about your tiny house. That's really fascinating. You've built your a tiny house yourself. That means that it's like a caravan, a house you can you can tie it. You can tie it on your car, and you can ride with it. So you can like go on a freeway with your house, and then put your house somewhere, and then live at that place for as long as you want. Is that correct?
Yeah, roughly. I mean, it's so we actually hired someone to build our house, and
Okay.
we helped with the design of it, but we didn't like do the construction because we're not good at that kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Understand.
So we moved into our little house in October of 2011, and we lived in it full time for 3 years. And actually, this last year, we decided to rent a small cottage in town, and our tiny house is on my in-laws' property right now. So we're not living in it full time at the moment, but yeah, I mean, the tiny house, you really need like a big truck to tow it. And, it is on wheels, which is great. But at least for us, it's not like as easy to move as we thought it would be. Like, it takes longer, and you have to be really mindful about where you choose to park your house, because at least in the US, there are a lot of zoning laws and regulations with that kind of thing. So, for example, we lived in Chico, California in the house. I think that was 2013, and we ended up having to leave because of zoning issues in the house. And that's a really long story, but now where we're parked, it's legal, and we're not planning on moving it anytime soon. So the tiny house is really awesome. It's been such a fun experiment in living simply. But for us this winter, we just decided we had to live in town. It was because where it's parked, it's like 15 miles outside of town, and in the winter it gets really cold here, and it was hard for us last year during winter time.
Okay. So if you could go back, would you still build the house, or is it?
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah. So it's like
I'm glad we lived in the house and that we built it, and we're still using it. It's just not right now. It's not full time during winter, and that's okay. Like, I think it's important for people who are simplifying their lives to realize that life changes. And I think one of the best things about living simply is that you can be flexible and resilient, because life is always changing. Like, what you think might work might not, so if you can just go with the flow and change, I think folks will have an easier time.
And keep the freedom to always change and not be stuck in a place, or to pay each month, because you already paid the house, so you don't have any living costs, no hiring costs. Is that right?
Well, again, I mean, that depends, right? Because just because Like you can't assume with a tiny house that you can just tow it somewhere and live for free. We've
No,
paid to rent a piece of land. So
exactly.
it's less expensive, I think, than a traditional house. You know, we're living in a really cute cottage in town, but it's more expensive. But we knew that going in, and we felt like the cost was worth it. For our current circumstance when it's really cold out. And it's not that the tiny house is it stays warm and cozy, but my husband has a traditional job here in town. And so for him, it's just easier to bike to work. It's only a mile away versus driving 15 miles into town and back every day.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, we've always paid rent for whatever piece of land we may park the house on. So it's definitely not free, if that makes sense. Like you're always going to have to, I think, either barter or pay money to live anywhere, really.
Yeah. And yeah, I think it's like a really cool thing to do. It's a bit of a future thing, I think, to build something. Because for me, to build something you can live in and you can travel the whole world with it, as so to speak. So, what if I'm a youngster and I'm just like completely blank in experience to build a house? What's your short guide to build that tiny house to go with everywhere?
Sure. Well, I think first off, do your research and read as many books and blogs as you can about tiny homes. And
Mm-hmm.
second, to really think about your needs and wants, like the lifestyle you want to live. And uh, I think, along with the needs and wants, you have to recognize what your skills are. I think it's really cool. I mean, I've read so many stories about people who build the house themselves, but it's a lot of work, and
Yeah.
you know, you have to be prepared to do that on a lot of different levels. And so, you know, don't be afraid to hire someone to do the construction for you and to help with the design. That's what Logan, my husband, and I decided to do, and it was a good decision for us.
Yeah. Okay. And yeah, and then just do the research about all the places. Did you travel with it outside the United States?
No,
No.
we had the house built in Washington State, and then we lived in Portland, Oregon for a while, and then we traveled around Northern California with the house. But I will say, you know, tiny houses are not aerodynamic. So like if you want to travel the US, or like, you know, if you're in the States and want to go up to Canada and have a little house in tow, I think about looking into like maybe a more traditional RV potentially, or like a smaller tiny house. It just depends on the design, but just our house in particular, definitely not aerodynamic, and the gas is expensive. Like when we moved the house from Oregon to Northern California, I think we were getting like 8 miles a gallon with the gas. So
Yeah.
it can be expensive to move those things.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, and if you want to see, when you're listening now, you want to see pictures of the house of Tammy, you can go to her blog, and she has a lot of pictures, yeah, from the house, inside and outside. It's yeah, really fantastic to see. So yeah, I want to go to a roundup, so like some short questions. And my first question is, because you're really talking about how important your loved ones are. What's your advice for someone who wants to improve their relationships?
Oh boy, another hard question. I
Yeah.
think like you have to make the time. I mean, that's really the bottom line. Like if you know, for example, if you want to really make more space in your life for your mom, as an example, you've got to make the time to spend with her. So like whether that's like getting together once a week and having a lunch and a heart to heart talk, like make space for that. You know, I I think it's so easy to get sucked into consuming, blogs or
Work.
TV, work, and all those things can be valuable, but like within moderation, like anything. So, yeah, just really making the time and space for the people you want to spend time with and have really deep relationships with.
What would you say to a young person who asks, Tammy, I want to be a creative entrepreneur like you, but how do I do it? Where do I start?
Well, another good question. I think starting first by thinking about what you want to do, like what inspires you, what are your skills, and how can you serve other people? Like really like thinking about how you can use your skills to help others make positive changes in their life. And so there are a lot of different ways you can do that, but it's going to depend on your skill sets and what really fires you up.
Yeah.
Like what would you do for free every day if you didn't have to worry about money? And then thinking about like, okay, well, I might need to make some money. So how can I turn that
Yeah.
into a job to pay the bills?
To help people and what you said, make positive changes. Yeah, that's really
Totally.
powerful. What's your number one advice for a busy person with a lot of stress?
I think the first step is to track your time. Like literally like print out your Google Calendar or record how you spend your days in your notebook and get really detailed. And I did this activity and I tracked my time for a couple weeks when I was like super, super stressed out before I made all these big life changes. And it was very eye opening. I realized, I'm spending like 3 hours a day watching TV. And so just by tracking my time and noticing the bad habits, I cut out the stuff that I realized, okay, I don't need this. Like instead of watching TV, I can read or make plans for the future and think about like how I really want to change my life. So really being mindful of how you spend your time, I think is essential.
Wow. And you also talked about it, but what's your number one advice to live simple?
Mm-hmm. Well, gosh, I think again, going back to your needs and wants, because we all have different life circumstances. And so, for myself, I have my husband Logan and 2 cats, and living in a tiny house on wheels was awesome. And it was a great experience. We might go back to tiny house living full time, but that living situation works for us. And we really made an active effort to figure out what our needs and wants were before we decided to take the plunge and live so simply. But that might not work for someone with 4 kids, so really like evaluating like what do you want, what does your family want, what do you really need to live like a simple and happy life.
Okay. And what's inspiring you the most at this moment?
I think my journaling, definitely, and my photography. And the third thing is just teaching e-courses. I really love connecting with the folks who take my classes. They're just really, really inspiring people. And I'm grateful that I get to see their creative processes unfold. It's awesome.
Okay. The 3 essentials. So I'm going to give you a topic and then you pick the 3 essential things. And let's start with 3 physical things. If you have to pick 3 things, what would you choose?
Like, so the 3 things just for living every day, kind of, or, like.
Yeah, just go to the basic needs.
Okay, so my journal, my iPhone, and Logan and my cats. That's actually 4 things, but
okay. Yeah, the cats can count as 1.
Okay.
3 apps, 3 applications on your phone.
Evernote, Instagram, and my native camera app on the iPhone.
Can you tell a little bit more about Evernote, how it helped you?
Sure. Evernote is awesome. I do most of my writing in it, and I really like Evernote because it syncs between apps. So I have the Evernote app on my MacBook Air and it's on my iPhone. And so, for example, yesterday when I was out hiking, I had a writing idea, and I just opened up a new note in the Evernote app. And later this morning, when I do some writing, I'll probably do that on my laptop, and it'll just sync across apps, and that makes my life so much easier.
Okay, so it's getting together all your tasks and things, or what do you use it exactly for Evernote?
So I use Evernote mainly for all my writing projects. So like my blog posts, my e-course ideas, book ideas as well. And
Okay.
I do make some lists in it, but not always. It's mainly for my writing.
Okay. And where do you write? What kind of program do you use to write?
So my process, I start in my journal and I do a first draft there typically, and then I go to Evernote and I transcribe that draft into either the app on my iPhone or on my MacBook Air.
So,
So
you,
yeah,
you write it down in like physical, just with pen and paper.
correct.
Then you make a picture of it, and then it transcribes to text.
No, I just transcribe it myself.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. Yes. Okay. I thought that was a a really awesome tool.
you might be able to do that,
Yeah.
but I
Okay.
doubt that it would read my handwriting.
Yeah. That will be there in the future, I think.
Maybe.
Yeah. And okay. And three essential books.
Oh, shoot. Books. So right now I'm reading a book called Process, and I'm about 25% through, I'd say. And so far I really love it. And I can't recall the author's name, but if you Google it, I'm sure it'll come
Oh
up.
yeah. Yeah.
And then I love a book called Money, Master the Game by Tony Robbins. Super, super helpful.
Yeah.
And the third book is,
super great also.
yeah, super great, super helpful. It was
Seven or 800 pages.
it was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Okay.
highly recommend the book. And then the third
Okay.
one is Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott.
Oh yeah. I never read that one, but you hear a lot of it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. And that's from that books, the book you recommended the most is one of them. Recommended the most to others.
I really think Tony Robbins' book, Money Master the Game, like at this point in time, I think is my number one recommendation, especially if you want to get your financial life in order. Um,
Yeah.
it's up to date, it's current, it just came out, and if you're struggling financially, or even if you're stable and want to take your finances to the next level, I think it provides a lot of valuable information and advice that's just helpful, and it's, I think, a great service to readers.
Okay. Also for Europe, for people in Europe.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think
Okay.
it's a lot of, well, he does talk a lot about the US, but a big part of the book, at least his impetus for writing it, was the global meltdown that happened in, like, was it 2008-ish, 2009? So I think it's definitely applicable for folks who aren't in the States too. You can glean a lot of good info in that book.
Okay. Thanks. And then I want to end with music. 3 music albums.
Oh, shoot. Okay. Well, I'm not really good at remembering names for music albums, but I'll give you one artist that I love, and his name's Ludovico Einaudi. His
Uh-huh.
music is just beautiful. It's piano, and
Uh-huh.
it's gorgeous. So check that out.
Okay. So other artists, maybe 3 artists.
Oh, I would say Ludovico Einaudi is my ultimate favorite, but
Okay,
just off the
sounds
top of
good.
my head, I love Fleet Foxes as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, now Tammy, thanks for your time and for all your inspiration, all your information, and lots of insights.
Yeah, thank you. It was really good to chat, and I appreciate it. It was fun.
Tell us again where we can find you everywhere. Social media, website.
Sure, you can find me online at rowdykittens.com, and that's really my home base on the web. So if you go there, you can find all kinds of good stuff. Yeah,
it's simple, it's nice, it's good, it's beautiful.
Thanks.
Okay. Have a nice day, and have good walks, good photos, good journaling, and lots of good times with loved ones.
Thank you. You too. It was so nice to chat with you, and let me know when the podcast goes up so I can share it with folks.
I will.
Okay. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. This was the episode with Tammy.